Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbea. We're on WLTK-DB.com. Let's Talk Radio. And we do all things paranormal on the station here. So, welcome to episode 31 of the Paranormal Pete Show. It's August 10th, and excited about episode 31. And I've got some other great episodes coming up for you. I'm taking next week off, so we'll do a little housekeeping here. I'll be taking next week off from the show, but I'll be coming back August 24th with psychic medium and author Mary Beckman, followed by on the 31st, psychic medium and author and Kasha Amenti. Really excited to have her on the show. She's been a longtime friend at the Port Gamble Ghost Conference, and Mary has been as well. And then on September 7th, I've got Mr. Ron Moorhead coming up on the show, and we're going to be talking cryptids and Sasquatch and, of course, the Sierra Sounds and everything he's been working on lately. He's got some cool stuff coming up. And then on the 14th of September, I'll be welcoming author Alan Wright to the show. He's got a lot of books. We're going to talk about a lot of his different experiences. So really excited for the shows coming up, and I'm just so honored to have all these guests. It's just great to have all these great people in the field of paranormal research and investigation, and not just ghosts, but even beyond that as well. But you can find us, WLTK-DB.com, all over the place, all the major streaming platforms. Just look up WLTK-DB on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook. We're all over the place, so it's hard to miss us. And hey, Linda Myers, great friend of the show. She's been a guest on the show. She's an amazing investigator. Thanks, Linda, for tuning in. And if you want to join the conversation, just hit the comment. Put a comment, we'll see it. So I hope you'll join the conversation tonight with my special guest, Darren Thompson, paranormal investigator from WSPIR. And so I hope you'll be joining the conversation with me and Darren and ask questions. It's fun to answer the audience questions. And but we got some really cool stuff coming up. My band, Steady Rock Cosmonaut, we played our first gig in a year and a half over the weekend. It was fun. It was weird playing in front of people again, but it was a lot of fun, and so glad to be doing that again. Starting October 1st, it's a Friday. The Ghost Walks here in Port Gamble, Washington, will start up. Hey, John, thanks for tuning in. So yeah, it's a 3-hour tour every Friday and Saturday night in October, including Halloween, and then I do once a month through April. So check the dates out and tickets out at portgambleparanormal.com. But it's a 3-hour tour, and you get a lot of history of historic Port Gamble, plus all the ghost stories, and we get to go into some cool places too. So I love doing the ghost walks. I started doing them in 2011, so this will be my 10th season, and it's still really fun to do. So I guess I like doing it. So I hope you'll come join me for a ghost walk tour. Now, I will have one weekend off from the ghost walks in mid-October, October 15th and 16th, because I'll be down in Centralia. They've got a new paranormal conference that they are launching this year to go along with their ghost tours they do in October, which are going to be on October 16th. But if you go to CentraliaDowntownFestivals.com/paranormal-conference, or just go to CentraliaDowntownFestivals.com. You can see the information on that. So I'm super honored to be a speaker at the conference. But I will be down in Centralia for that weekend, so no ghost walks. And then, of course, we've got the Port Gamble Ghost Conference coming up November 5th through 7th. And fingers crossed, we're still shooting for an in-person conference as long as it's safe. So be looking for that. You can go to portgamble.com/ghost conference to get the information for there. So I'm actually been accepting vendor applications, speakers, and class applications. You can get those right on the website there. So I'm really excited to have that one coming up. It's the 12th annual Port Gamble Ghost Conference. So that's even getting old in age, like the rest of us. But yeah, so we've got station merch too. Product placement here. So there's all kinds of WLTK-DB stuff, and all the shows, we've got our own t-shirts. So if you like Haunted Voices, you can get a Haunted Voices t-shirt. If you like the Afterlife Chronicles, you can get an Afterlife Chronicles t-shirt. Or my show, The Paranormal Pete Show. Just go to WLTK-DB.com and you'll find all the cool stuff you can get there. So, and plus the website's just fun to tour. If you like to catch the archive versions, there's easy to find on the new website. You can watch the video or just the audio if you like to just listen in your car as you're driving around. And I always got to give a shout out to people on the East Coast listening. It's pretty late there. Thanks for tuning in. And we hope you get to finish out your evening with us here and have some fun. So I want to welcome my next special guest, Darren Thompson from WSPIR. And he's someone I met through the Port Gamble Ghost Conference, and just has a wealth of knowledge in paranormal research and investigating. Extremely credible investigator. Someone I feel like I've learned a lot from just talking with him over the years. He's just a wealth of knowledge. Darren's an engineer with T-Mobile, and he's the president and a founder of WSPIR here in Washington. It's a TAPS family team, and he's always been fascinated by the unexplained or the paranormal, spirits and hauntings, aliens, cryptozoology. And I'm going to ask him about some of his experiences that kind of really made him get into paranormal research. So in this September, him and his wife, Jill, which I hope she makes a cameo this evening as well, they're going to be traveling to Vernal, Utah to attend Phenomicon, a paranormal conference with the main focus being Skinwalker Ranch. So talk to Darren about that as well. I think that's that whole situation, the Skinwalker Ranch, is fascinating. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome my good friend, Darren Thompson, to the show. Welcome, sir. We're buffering.
You thought I didn't know, right?
Hey, Darren.
Hey, Pete, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm hanging in there and just living the dream, right?
Excellent. Yeah, indeed.
How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. As you said, I work for T-Mobile, and this isn't about T-Mobile and Sprint, but the reason I relocated to the state of Kansas was because of that. T-Mobile has two central offices, one in Washington State, where I worked for actually 20 years. I worked out of that office.
Right.
And now I'm working out of the one here at Overland Park, the former Sprint campus. Although I'm working from home, so I could be anywhere. But I'm about like 45 minutes away in a little town called Ottawa, Kansas. And what's interesting, so I was born and raised in Montreal in Canada.
Right.
And 90 minutes from where I lived was Ontario. And the provincial capital of Canada is Ottawa.
Right.
It's the Ottawa Indians are the same Ottawa Indians that came down to Kansas. And so it's kind of, there's a lot of synchronicities as to, like, I'm here in this house. And as you know, Jill and I we have so many great memories and experiences from going to New Orleans. And so when she was as a lark, we said, what if we moved to Kansas with this new office there? I said, yeah, but have you really, like, just the right house? And so it's like, well, I want lots of porches. It's like, I want something like out of the Garden District in New Orleans.
Right.
And she found one. and so it's like, this is like unbelievable. So I've got, like, the house is like 40 feet wide, and it's got 40-foot wide galleries on the second floor as well as the first floor, and it's doubled in the back of the house. So it's like a mirror image, and the four big columns that as a joke, some of the guys I work with call me Senator now, because when they saw the pictures of the house,
Senator Thompson.
Yeah, Senator. But I just love it, and it's an old 1900s house. I did some genealogical research, because that's part of the paranormal is the gift of researching, like, why would a place be haunted? Why is a little girl going down the stairs? That's
Right.
because my grandfather told me. It's like, well, maybe he made it up. So being able to factually find out there's a story behind the story that you're, talk
Yeah.
to me, leave me a message. Like,
Yeah.
why? So I was able to do research. So I know who lived here. I know who died here.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, if you notice behind me, no, camera's the other way.
Oh. Oh, yeah.
That is a really old baby carriage.
Is it from the house?
No, it's from the area. It's from
Oh,
here.
okay.
So in Seattle, when I'd want to go antique shopping, I'd go to the bank, I'd get a nice loan, then I'd go and look for some antiques. Over here, it's like, do you have a pig?
Oh, jeez.
I'm exaggerating, of course,
Sure.
but the cost is so much less, and there's, I guess, older people getting rid of stuff here than there is in Seattle. So
Okay.
we've been filling our house up with things that, uh, if there's attachments or sentimentality or emotional ties,
Right.
we should be having stuff happen. So do you see that the guitar right beside my head?
Yes.
Right? Wait a minute. I've always wanted to do this. It's like crush your head, crush your head. So that guitar is in a rocking chair that's from the early 1900s.
Okay.
The neighbor was having a garage sale, and they came over with two rocking chairs and said, "Your house just kind of calls for rocking chairs to be on the porch." So they gave me that rocking chair,
Oh, how
and
kind.
that one, which is
Okay.
even older, and they're all the freakiest. It's got like saw teeth on the leg, and the
Whoa.
front leg digs into the tooth to keep it where it should be. So you can
Interesting.
adjust. Amazing, amazing. It's just so well built. So I put the guitars there, so if they move, I should be able to hear them. It puts some weight in them. And
Yeah.
so if you see anything move behind me,
I'll let you know.
it's the floors. Nothing is level in this house.
I knew you were going to do that. Well, we'll put it out to the audience here. Anybody tuning in, feel free to say hello and where you're tuning in from. And keep an eye out behind Darren, I guess. But I would say, what if that baby carriage just, started to roll? It's the floors, right?
It should be settled where it is.
Okay.
It's not going to like pick up speed all of a sudden. Now, I was on a work conference call because working from home, we're all using video conferencing.
Right.
And somebody asked me who walked past me in the hallway behind me.
Oh,
And Jill was asleep. There was nobody else in the house. And
wow.
and what's funny is since I moved here, Kansas does not know about Whisper and Darren and the Paranormal.
Right.
So when we posted and it was on my profile, one of my neighbors happens to be able to see my Facebook profile. It's like, my neighbor does that.
What if that could be an awkward introduction?
Yeah. Well, somebody said when you're in that part of America, you're on the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Right.
So I know that, but everyone here has been absolutely fabulous, and people have come up to me sharing their stories of paranormal without knowing anything that I do. So it's really good to just be an observer of what's going on.
Yeah,
So
no,
I'm really enjoying
exactly.
it.
Well,
Yeah,
that should really give you some, good insights just, in general to the area and just kind of how the culture and the history and kind of give you a better sense of where you're at. And so that might make more sense in any paranormal research that you do there. So that's really cool. I'm
absolutely.
glad you guys are loving the place. It's a beautiful home. And now you're still a part of Whisper and a big part of that. Now, how is that going from a distance? And then also, how was it going through the pandemic and working with the team or, you know, increased clientele? But how has it been running the team from a distance?
So as you said, Whisper is still intact, and uh, we'll have an announcement about that. We actually have, so while we're here in
Hmm.
Kansas, We have a couple that has stepped forward that are willing to lead in our absence. It'll still be using the protocols and the methodologies that we've created, and they're familiar with all those protocols, so it'll be quite simple for them to continue going forward.
Right.
But during the pandemic, being responsible. Hey, Shirley. Being responsible for a team of people, I wasn't going to put anybody in harm's way, and
right.
When you're investigating, it's like, don't talk to anybody. We don't want to know about what's going on. But it's like, actually, we do want to know a little bit more about it because of the pandemic and everything going on. So I practiced the utmost of caution, and so we really didn't do any investigations.
Okay.
And the amount of calls that we received just dwindled to almost nothing. And being part of the TAPS family, I guess I should say, they don't dictate how they want you to run a group. So it's not like, oh, he's one of the TAPS family members. That means he does this and he does. It means nothing. It just means that they've kind of interviewed the group and they accept that the methodologies we use is truly to help people.
Right.
Whether it's boiling a really strong tea, or using psychics, or using thermal imaging and biometric sensors. It's as long as you're running it ethically, and that you make sure that anyone who's in your team has had the criminal record, that they don't have a criminal record.
Right.
That there's nothing negative. So we can say that when we investigate your home, all of our members have cleared a background check, and they've been checked. It's not just they showed up at the library on Saturday and they're coming with us tonight.
Yeah.
So it's a little more formalized.
Yeah.
So in asking the other groups around North America, they're all experiencing the same thing. It's each group, of course, was allowed to do whatever they wanted to do.
Right.
But the majority of them were just going to stop until we can let people focus on themselves.
Yeah.
There's enough going on with working from home or not working at all. And the kids that would go away in the daytime to the place called school now are in the living room and in the kitchen. And it just, life as we know it changed completely.
Right.
And a lot of what I find with the paranormal is when people are home and they're just doing nothing, that's when they kind of notice stuff's going on.
Yeah.
But if you're leading a real busy life, you don't notice that the coffee maker's just levitated and shot out of the room. As long as I got coffee in the morning,
I'm good.
I'm good with it. Yeah, so I don't know if the cases dropped because there was less paranormal activity, or people were just prioritizing and focusing on different things.
Right. I think both are great points, and I've been asking almost all my guests who run teams or are part of teams of kind of how did it go, and it's been a mix of some people got a lot of phone calls and felt like maybe there was increased activity because of people are at home, they're noticing things when they're there during the day when they're normally not there. Maybe that's when the ghosts come out, is they think, oh, they're going to work, oh my gosh, they're still here. Get a towel on. No. So it's been a real mixed bag, and I think it's just a combination of everything, like that you were mentioning.
The answer is based on each person's experience. So if I received 100 phone calls about chickens, then I'm going to say there's a big surge in chicken stuff.
Right.
I didn't get any calls, so my experience is there was nothing. And I can speculate why I didn't have any calls, or I can speculate why somebody got a lot of chicken calls. No idea.
Right.
I know in my life, things everything changed. The regular cadence of meetings that we would have was no more. There was let's all meet at the library, we're going to have a meeting, a team meeting. It's like, nothing is so important as to risk your life unless you're saving somebody else's life.
Exactly. Yes.
And if you did it that way, it's like, hey, come on, I'm having a fire and there's going to be some children inside and you can come and save them. Want to come over? Like, unless that's what you're doing, because most people was like, it's just a meeting.
Yeah.
So I have to be everyone else's conscience. I couldn't live with myself if something happened to people that got together because we wanted to talk about an EVP.
Right. Yeah. No. And you did what you felt was right, and you handled things how you felt was right. That's all we can do. Take stock in what we have and what we have control of, and then just go from there. Well, we're going to take a quick station break, pay the bills here. We're on the Paranormal Pete Show.
Is that what that coin slot was that you sent to me, just to start feeding the meter?
Yeah, you just start putting coins in there, dollar pieces. Yep, just put them in there. But we'll
make it rain.
Yeah, make it rain. We're gonna make it rain with Darren here when we come back from a quick break on the Paranormal Pete Show, WLTK-DB.com.
Paranormal evidence. We scour the internet searching for true paranormal captures, information, and education. New methods mixed with old methods of capturing this mysterious phenomenon. Well, look no further for your ghostly voices than ghostly-voices.com. Nicole Tito and Lisa Crick take you on a journey into their paranormal world and provide you with true EVP and ITC audio captures, compelling information on debunking, some hilarious bloopers, and more. Remember, these two are veterans in the field and know how to capture the true evidence you are looking for. Ghostly-voices.com, your paranormal stop for true audio evidence. Ghostly-voices.com. A book of mystery, a book of one man's journey, a book of the afterlife, a book you must read. Ghost and Me by 5-time award-winning author Kevin Killen is a book of one man's journey in the search of the afterlife. Read of his chilling childhood experience, his investigative journeys, and his opinions of paranormal activity. Ghost and Me by Kevin Killen, an Ozark Mountain publication. Get your copy today online or wherever books are sold.
All right, welcome back to the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbea, with special guest Darren Thompson, paranormal investigator and researcher with the Team WSPIR in Washington. However, he has relocated to Kansas. And so before the break, we were talking about some of the challenges and what the team experienced through the pandemic. But I want to also ask, now that you're down there and, kind of checking things out, do you plan to do investigations down there in your local area?
Let me do this. You repeat the guy's question. Pete, that's a great question. Do I plan on doing investigations while I'm here? Don't spew it. It's really hard to clean out a keyboard. Yes, but because of the way things are, I'm not going to pursue the private homes.
Sure.
It would be going to public places where there's a history. It may not be a haunted history, but there'll be a history. For me, it was always the trace of the historic involved in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Civil War things that happen around here. This town is fairly well documented as to what happened within this town, and it's small, like 10,000 less, somewhere around that. It's large for a small city, but it's a small city. Everybody, I'm sure my neighbors are looking out from their window, looking at what the hell's he doing? He's got his lights on still. I'll read about it when I'm cutting the grass. Somebody will come up to me and go, I knew you were up last night. But it's really, that's the cool part. It's like, it's total different mindset, and it's just interesting. So yes, I want to go to places. We've we've done, so when we first, so again, originally from Montreal, when I moved to Seattle in 2000, what Jill and I would do is we would hop in the car, we'd pack a bag, and we'd go for a weekend and go to, I don't know, let's Port Townsend. So we'd go there, and then we'd check out the fort and check out things like that. And then, hey, let's go to, I don't know, Whidbey Island. And then we just kind of venture around, went all over the place, just touring and finding out about the area. So we've started doing the same thing here, going to different areas. The Wizard of Oz Museum is not haunted, but a very good museum.
Awesome.
But it's places like that. And they did have a little town where the museum consists of buildings that they've taken from all the old farmhouses that before they were torn down, but were still in good shape, but they needed to reuse the land. And they relocated the buildings. So they've made this little town.
And that's the museum itself.
Yeah, the museum is the one building has the artifacts, but then they have the old schoolhouse. And they brought me to the old telephone shop, like the little house that had all the telephone switch equipment from the town.
Oh, man.
And the people that were walking me through were the president and vice president of the museum. And it was a weekday, so it was pretty quiet. And with COVID, they haven't had anybody. So it was just Jill and I.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is the old schoolhouse, and that's where I used to sit. And my aunt was the teacher here. So it's like, that's living history.
Living history.
And when you get to talk, and I've always found that groups always say, like, how do you get into these places? We've gotten to so many places by going to these museums and saying, do you guys need volunteers? And the answer is always yes. They're always looking for volunteers to assist. So if you have a group of 5 or 6 people that are able-bodied, and you say, I have 5 or 6 people that we can come and donate our time to help you, and then you build a trust. They get to know you. Now it's Darren. Hi, Darren. It's not just, the paranormal guy wants to investigate.
Right.
It's Darren.
Yeah.
And Darren helped me. Darren and his teammates helped me. So all these individuals become like points of trust.
Yeah.
And then when you say, would it be okay if we investigated one night? And more often than not, if they allowed to take you as a volunteer and you assisted and you did good work, they're going to be more than happy to do something that didn't cost them anything.
Right. Exactly. So, so you're kind of checking out and, different areas, going for little road trips, and I'm interested to see where you go and how that goes. But I totally, agree with sticking to public places than private residences.
For now, that's what it's going to have to be.
Yeah. But I know you guys, are really passionate about helping people with, concerns they have in their own home. So hopefully sometime it'll be safe to be able to do that.
It will. It's not going to be the same as it was, but there'll be a new normal and a new way of doing things. And when you said that we're into helping people, and that's really key, is when we started WSPIR, we were all the core of WSPIR were members of AGHOST, a great paranormal group in Washington State, and we worked with them, and it just reached a point where, because of the way that we did things was a little different, and it's kind of like if you don't like the way somebody's doing something, you either ask or try to modify to change it, and if you can't, then do it yourself, kind of thing. So forming WSPIR was our way of being able to do it the way we wanted to do it, without trying to like change somebody else's way of doing things. And in the paranormal, there's no wrong way. And so it's great to have so many groups doing things differently.
Right.
Because what's insanity? Repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yes.
So it's insanity that we're all, let's all do the same thing. So we approach things differently, and some things we approach the same, but that's how we initiated it. And it was always, we want to find that evidence. I want to put on my MySpace the video of the gray lady walking down the street holding a tape recorder going, it's me. And it became less and less about trying to prove to anyone. Because if you've been doing this any length of time, you cannot convince someone that doesn't believe in this that there is something to believe in.
Sure.
And someone who has had an experience, there's nothing you can say to convince them that experience wasn't real.
Exactly. Yeah, the personal experience is the most impactful, but could also be the most flawed.
Exactly.
All at the
I've
same
seen
time.
people, yeah, they see a glass move across the table, and it's like, that glass just came out of the dishwasher, and there's like moisture, and it's just kind of hydroplaning. No, it's not,
Yeah.
because my uncle died last week, and he said he would glide across my kitchen table. And I was like, okay. I can't prove that he wasn't, but I could also do it too. So it wasn't about trying to prove that your experience you had was on video, and here's the evidence, and everybody now look, ha ha ha, you cannot defy me. It became it after time and time again of taking phone calls of people that were visibly upset by what they had experienced,
Right.
be it paranormal or not. Whatever happened to them affected them to the point. So just imagine if you see a fire, I have to do something because there's a fire. What am I going to do? I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call 911. You know what to do.
Right.
I have a spirit in my house. Maybe a demon in the basement. Can't really tell. I'm going to go on the internet and look up ghost hunter. So
Right.
the most logical people, that's a barrier that's hard to go past.
Right.
So the fact that you're getting a phone call from them is like they've just passed that barrier of, I don't know what else to do. So I'm going to go on the internet and look up ghost hunter. And you're talking to them, and the first thing they say, if they start off with, you won't believe this because it sounds crazy, right away they've bought a lot more trust than if they said, okay, it's a level 3 entity. It's underneath the staircase. I can show it to you, but it'll bite me. It's when somebody comes up with a definitive, it's like, I don't need you to investigate. I just want to tell you.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to come and experience it with me, come on over. Bring the whole crew. It's like, no, I think we're busy that year.
Yeah.
So it's really about the sincerity, and so the fear is real. And at that point, you don't know why or what. And to be able to just to be the ear to listen and empathize with what they're going through.
Right.
And then as years go on, you have examples where what they're telling you resonates because you've had someone else experience that very same thing, or you've experienced it yourself.
And you can relate. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you can say, oh, when it happened to me, this was how it made me feel. And then they open up because now they have someone who's had a shared experience.
Right.
And so the interview is so important in the paranormal because you're listening to what their actual experience was.
Right.
And that's really the gist of it. Is now I'm helping this person who called me basically from a place of fear because he doesn't know what else to do.
Right.
So to be able to assist them and not to be able to have a half a ghost, we got to, it's to go in and see, let's see what else could be causing the things that you're experiencing. It may not be paranormal, but we want to see if we can find out what's going on.
Yeah. And then, pursue having that person fix those things that might be causing issues.
Exactly.
And then to ultimately help them out.
If you have bad electrical system in your house, it doesn't matter how many EVPs you have, his electrical system's not going to get any better. So there's it's like, let's fix the things that we can prove are in fact needing to be fixed. What's left over is very possible is paranormal. And we've had enough experiences that I don't doubt the paranormal. I couldn't tell you what it is, but I know it happens.
Sure.
But it's about helping people get past it. And in some cases, we can't change what's going on in their house, but just the knowledge that everything that's unexplained doesn't have to be something from a horror film.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't have to be scary.
Yeah. So it's tugging on your hem of your shirt. Like, ooh, it sounds Satanish. Ooh, shirt tugging.
Yeah, sure.
So it's kind of, if you put it in that light, does it really seem like it's an evil act that's going on? If you've got the exorcist activities going on, that's a little on the negative side. But more often than not, it's not like that.
Yeah.
But people who have no experience with it, they think the worst. If they didn't, then they wouldn't have called you in the first place.
Right. And like you said, it takes a lot for someone to make that jump to call.
Yeah.
And I
If
don't
it's
blame.
legitimate.
Sure.
It takes nothing at all if it's not legitimate.
Right, exactly. And they always, if it's legitimate or what they think is legitimate, they'll always say, "Well, everyone thinks I'm crazy," or
Yeah.
"You're right. You're not going to believe this." How rich would you be if you had a nickel for every time somebody said that to you? I feel like I'd be a semi-rich guy.
Yes. I'd be laughing in quarters and nickels.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be a lot.
Yeah. And that's a great point that you bring up. And for people listening out there who are on a team, or maybe you're thinking about starting to investigate, those are kind of some good things that the Darren just threw out there about helping somebody, kind of gauging, really listening to what they're saying. Is there something you can relate with too, especially if they're coming from a place of fear, which most often they are by the time they call you. So great points there. And belief systems, they're just that's part of humanity. And like you said, you can't convince someone otherwise, and a personal experience or not. I mean, I've had personal experiences where I'll say what you said. I know what happened. I know I think I know what happened, or whatever it is, but it's hard to really shake someone's belief. And I it seems like there's more and more teams that are kind of um going back to focus on clients and helping them. I think people kind of branch out sometimes and then they kind of come back in. But as you mentioned before, being a part of the TAPS family doesn't mean that you do this and that you do that. But the difference was the focus is on the client and helping the client. So I applaud you for always sticking to that and continuing to stick to that. I think it's what the paranormal field needs, right?
Yeah, it truly does. And also buying a lot of gear. That's really my incentive.
It can get expensive, sure.
Yes. Unless you're a musician and you happen to have gear, like someone I know. Wait, are you on this side of my? You're on that side of me, aren't you? Am I pointing at you?
Yeah, I don't have all the gear I want, but yeah. And one thing that's weird, through COVID is we just noticed one of our band members had to look for something new, a new amp, and he was having troubles finding anything new. Nobody was producing anything last year.
Yeah, well, because you need people, depending on where the manufacturing is. You've got the truckers, apparently, who there's not enough of them, pick stuff off the wharf.
Yeah.
And then there's the manufacturing slowed down, if not shut down, for a great period of time. So that is affecting everything. In T-Mobile, I'm seeing it with the silicone for phones. I'm seeing it you hear about cars. You can't get new cars, that they're actually buying back old cars almost at the same price you bought them at because they need inventory to resell.
Right.
So that's so true. And ghost tech is usually what's the word I'm looking for? Crap. It's usually just bullpucky electronics where it makes a needle move, and then someone created some weak theory that this needle wiggling means ghost.
Right. Is it really tested? How are things tested?
What does it mean? It's they don't tell you what it's for. Like, this is to detect if your microwave oven is broken and leaking radiation.
Yes.
Ergo, that must be a spirit.
Right.
Your microwave's not busted. You're haunted.
Yeah. Well, so right, exactly. You're haunted. It's you.
Yeah. So my experience in electronics and working in radio frequencies, which EMF is part of that, and all of these, the audio frequencies, the visual spectrum, and the radiated spectrum, everybody just loves to do EMF testing and to test these my ghost detectors. I watched a group use a stud sensor to find a ghost, and apparently the ghost was every where does space studs? Every 16 inches?
Yeah. Maybe 2 feet if you're depending on the age of the house. It might be 2 feet.
Yeah, and plaster and lathe. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Move.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
But you've developed this concept that this meter, when it makes a noise, definitely relates to something paranormal. And so groups go and they say, oh, the needle went off.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And
what about anything around it? Yeah. And
yeah. Like the TV shows that I had the opportunity to film an episode of Ghost Hunters when they did Cedar Woolley's Northern State.
Yeah.
That's episode, I'm going to make up a number, 113.
All
and
right.
I'm completely excluded from it, but you can see me in the shadow in one frame. And you know that everybody always rags on all these paranormal groups, like, you went in the room alone, you shouldn't have gone in the room alone. Why were they by themselves? Like, actually, they were with me, or I was with them, depending on how you look at it. No one was ever alone. But when they excised me from that episode, somebody looked like they were alone all the time. But the beauty of that is I got to see. So the place was a fabulous location to investigate and great history. But I got to see there's a production crew. So the 3 investigators that are sitting by themselves are actually encompassed by some guy holding a big bunny on the end of a boom mic to listen to them speak. There's a guy with a camera, maybe 2. And sometimes there's a producer that's kind of guiding all this chaos together.
Right.
And then there's one guy who's running around with batteries strapped to his waist to, like, this is for the cameraman. Here's the spare batteries. It's like, that's not a way to run an investigation. Like, I know where my team is. My team is in this room. I know who the team is. And if there's anyone outside of there, I have a camera that'll pick up motion that, hey, somebody couldn't wait to go to the bathroom. They went during this session in that room. So you control the environment like a crime scene.
Yeah, right.
And it's anything but control because they don't, like, seal the building, and they've got all these runners delivering things to people.
Yeah.
like Amazon Express. What was that? I think it was Willie delivering another battery.
Yeah.
And it's for entertainment. The intent of what they're doing at the time was good, but it's for the ratings. You want to have salacious activity. You want to have something that people can talk about. And
sure.
So I got to see that side of things and saw how it's kind of, nothing was ever staged. Nothing was ever created to the best of my knowledge. They do investigate as they show, but there's a lot of editing. There's a lot of stuff that you never get to see. And
you can't cram a 12-hour investigation into an hour show without editing so much.
So think of the last investigation you did.
Okay.
And if you had a dedicated crew to capture this to broadcast out to the paying public, it would be like watching a fishing show. His battery went weak. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
Like, replace the battery.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that one tap?
Yeah, I love that. It's like, so you've never been in this building before until tonight, and you heard a strange noise. Is it really a strange noise? Because maybe if you live there, that's what happens all the time.
Yeah, it's just strange to you.
Yeah, we heard it. Let's leave. Let's leave and go into another room and try something completely different.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk about that location a little bit. Yeah. Northern State, because you've investigated there numerous times, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was it? What about the location makes it a good team investigation location? And then maybe share a couple of experiences you've had there.
Oh, you're so demanding. So
get to it.
What makes it good for a team is the size of the location allows for a lot of people to simultaneously investigate. Because that was the theory. We found out that sound isolation in that building sucked. So although we had 4 distinct groups, there was a little bit of bleed over when the teams got close. But that the beauty of it is the size. It's like going to old Montana State Prison.
Okay.
You've got enough space that you can go unfettered. You can have 2 or 3 groups run simultaneously without interfering with one another.
Right.
The location it's the old insane asylum. I could just, mic drop right there.
Yep.
Abandoned insane asylum. and I got one of the things. So what got that investigation? How Whisper's been truly blessed in how many opportunities we've had, that it wasn't like I devoted every waking moment to finding out who could get us into these places. It was, I get a phone call going, I'm an author and I want to do a story, and I'd like to do a story about Northern State Hospital, and I need a paranormal group person to be with me.
Okay.
That's literally what happened.
Nice.
So the author established the point of contact that after me, the author, and the administration of Northern State got together, I was then, I asked, do you think I could come back here without, what's their name? And he said, yeah, I don't see any reason why not. And it ended up that we had access to all the old records they had, the old photos that they had of the hospital. Now, the people that work there, they live there. They were there from the 70s. These are longtime employees of this company.
Okay.
And it's like Northern State Insane Asylum. Wow, you stay there at night? So there's this built up preconceived notion of the horror and terror. And to speak to the people, it's like, yeah, I worked here as a kid and I was a steam fitter and I went through the underground tunnels at night and I'd make sure everything was okay. And it was a place you could see, you can hear it, the love they had for this place, that they they grew up here and it was helping people the best they could and everything. So there was that aspect that made it very human and very real to me.
Nice.
And they did share experiences that they had, but they were never things of terror
or evil or
correct. It was just they had things that happened that they couldn't explain, and it defied explanation. There was no way you could explain away how they saw a girl like walk through a wall, kind of thing.
Right.
Now the chances of it happening again, probably less than none. But yet it was that interviewing these people, but we offered to assist, and so we had the opportunity to scan all of their images for them and some of the hospital records, the ones that were allowed to be scanned. You know, they kept stuff away from us. And so we digitized it for them so they could make a book for them, and then we were allowed to come in and do investigation. So it was just Whisper.
Yeah.
And we investigated. And then we were contacted by TAFs of, hey, we hear you can get us into an insane asylum. That'd be really cool. Actually, they wanted to get into Starvation Heights.
Okay.
And I'm very protective of Starvation Heights because I know the family and I know that they'd be eating dinner and people would come up with, wow, that's the haunted house. Like, no, it's us having dinner.
Yeah. Oh, that would suck.
It very much impinged upon their like life. So when Ghost Hunter said we want to do Starvation Heights, I said it's been torn down. It's not there anymore. The people are not interested in doing anything. So then I said, but I am in contact with the people, the administrators for Northern State Hospital, and so that's how that happened. So I got to go back again. So we've had a couple of opportunities to investigate there, and I guess so I was at base majority of the time to manage all the groups that we had going around. I did go in at some time, of course, but one of the teams, it would be because I would send each team in. They had a video camera to record the team's motion through the building. And the way we do is we have a sensitive who would just kind of guide what they felt was going on. And it's hard doing that in a historic location. It's like we're in an insane asylum and I'm in the operating theater. I'm picking up, you're in the hospital. You kind of, how much is just because of the place? But we still had the experience of there was little pebbles being thrown at the group. They could hear pebbles, and it got to the point where they'd all stop, and then you'd hear you'd hear the little pebble bouncing on the floor, and they'd kind of look for it, and they never could find it. They'd walk a little further, and then you'd hear it again. So you could hear things being thrown at them.
Yeah.
And one of them was a coin. That they did find the coin, because some of the noises could be attributed to the plaster falling off the wall, because this is a building in decay.
Right.
But it was too repetitive and too directed at them. It wasn't just falling; it was like being tossed.
And you hear it bouncing. Yeah.
So that was interesting. There were a lot of experiences that people had, but that was one that really stood out because it was more of a physical and not just the feeling. Because once, what I find is I love the group dynamics of seeing how people interact with one another.
Sure.
And time again, not just with WSPIR, with any group, when you have someone who starts to have a very strong reaction to something, everyone around them now reacts and gets hypersensitive because now it's like something's going to happen. Something just happened.
Sure, sure.
And so the energy changes quickly. And it's so important to kind of how much is just the, you're picking up everybody else's energy and now you're, like a tightly coiled spring ready to go off. So it's interesting to see the group dynamics and to say, okay, we had an experience there, but let's really look at this and see what really did happen.
Yeah.
And how much was you reacting to it?
You're almost, in a sense, investigating the investigators during the investigation, in a sense.
It's kind of taking away false positives, things that could be misleading.
Right. Yeah.
If you have a psychic say, I see a little girl and she's wearing a blue dress, and then somebody goes, and red shoes, and then the person's building this narrative of that you've just built somebody. You've got a paper doll constructed by like 5 people. It's like, we got red shoes, we got a blue gingham dress, we got yellow hair,
Yeah,
and,
right.
And so it's so difficult. You can't prove any of it. And it's not that these people aren't picking up what they're picking up, but if you're in a group setting and each one is adding to it, I don't like that. I'd rather, like, you're going to go into room number 1, you're going to tell me what you experienced. And I'm going to talk to person number 2, and I want you to tell me what you had in your experience. I don't want each person to hear what the other person had.
Right.
Because it's human nature to want to, like, man, they had a lot of stuff happen. I had nothing. Do you add something? Do you exaggerate? All that's taken away if it's not put into this group setting of everyone joining into what they had.
Right.
But my number one pet peeve is, I got an EVP. I'm going to play it for you. It says, kill me. Okay, now listen.
What do you think it says? That's a pretty common one. Yeah. So now, is that like a role that you kind of just naturally do if you're doing a team investigation? Do you kind of just naturally find yourself watching the investigation? You mentioned, at Northern State you were at base to kind of monitor the teams. Is that kind of something that's just natural for you, just to kind of observe that way?
I guess because I find it so fascinating. It's if you're not in the building. So at Northern State, we didn't have video system to monitor everybody live. So I wasn't at base monitoring the teams. I was just coordinating, like that team just came in, here's fresh batteries, and I want to copy all of your audio tapes. And then if it was memory cards, download. And if it was physical media, then here's a new tape and leave me the old tape. And then that's the capture of your experience from team 1 in section 1 between this time and this time, and then seal it in an envelope for this is like evidence. This is what happened, and no one can accuse us of tampering because it's been sealed. Of course, anything could be tampered. It's the trust of the person who told you it wasn't tampered with.
Right.
But when we're doing I like the technology, so I want to see everything. So we would install cameras pretty much everywhere that the team would go.
Right.
And then I'd install microphones because I didn't like the audio quality of the cameras typically. So with all the band equipment, I had all these mixers and all these microphones and miles of XLR cable. So I would run microphones, and using microphone snakes, you could do like 100-foot jump and then branch out from that snake. So we could go into one room with the mixer and all the cameras, and then you'd have camera 1 is associated with microphone 1. So you could sit with headphones, turn up microphone 1, and hear everything in the room where camera 1 is.
Right.
And then we ended up getting some digital headphone sets where I could, like an in-house monitor system.
Okay.
The person sitting at station 1 could listen to cameras, to look at camera. So I'd set up one monitor with like 5 or 6 camera views, and then a second monitor with another 5 or 6 camera views, and at least 1 or 2 persons at each monitor. Each of those people would have headphones, and they could listen to whatever microphone channel they wanted.
That's
with
awesome.
this little digital mixer. So I could listen to the microphone in 1, and then when they moved to 2, I could listen to 2. So I could follow them going through. But the whole time, all 12 channels were being digitally recorded on independent channels without being affected by someone listening louder or changing the volumes. So that was a big leap. We were able to listen to all the digital audio. And it wasn't to listen to all of it. It was if something happened at 10:32 in room number 1, I now have a sound and video sample at 10:31 of the entire location, not just where something happened.
Right.
Because oftentimes the sound from room 1 where people were was actually caused by something in room number 3, or even a sound outside that you wouldn't have known because you weren't outside to hear it.
Right.
But the microphones were. So we used the microphones so you could, I don't want to say triangulate. In theory, you could.
Sure.
But it was more just with the source, the louder the source was, the closer you knew it was to that microphone, and you knew where the microphone was.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you would be monitoring the team going through. You'd overhear what they were saying. So in effect, you were watching and listening to their investigation without being in that room. Because I think having too many people in a room is not beneficial.
Right.
And so from my watching and seeing what was going on, you could see how people were influencing one another and how people had good chemistry or bad chemistry, because you could watch how they interacted. And each team member would be tasked at documenting what they observed, even to the behavior of the investigators themselves, because there are cases where the investigators were affected by what was going on in the house, unbeknownst to themselves. But we, who knew how they normally behaved, knew they were out of sorts.
And you can make note of that. And
And we pull them out if there was getting negative influence to them. But there's the other side of the coin too, is with all that technology, it would take hours to set up.
I was going to ask, how long did it take to set that up?
We'd have a team show up shortly around lunchtime to start setup. And typically we would be like, there's still somebody duct taping wires down as the psychic team would show up at like 8 p.m.
Right.
So it's like, have them start at that end of the house, because, we're still doing stuff at that end of the house. And it got me to realize that a lot of the stuff that happens is the interview, and then having someone who's sensitive to go through and sense what they're picking up in that house. But we were very controlling in that we didn't want anyone on the team to know what the story was.
Right.
So Jill or I or someone else on the team would do the interview, and then that would be documented. This is the interview. Here's the notes of what we took down of the interview, and a specific series of questions. It's always the same questions asked. So we have a control of what the questions were with all our cases. And then when we did the investigation, we would try to have a psychic on the team, and we wouldn't direct them where to go or what to do, but they would be accompanied by someone to transcribe what they were saying, because they couldn't always remember what they said.
Because when sometimes it's hard to write. Yeah, and it's hard to write.
And then we have someone, a third person that would carry a video camera to follow them and videotape what was going on.
Yep.
So it wasn't just an because even if you write what they said, it may not be, it could be the tone in which they said it that had more meaning in context than just the words themselves. So that gave a true reenactment of what was going on. Anyone else could see that after the fact. And then we'd have someone that would have meters.
Yeah.
Because so much of the things that people experience during a phenomenon event can be explained by technology that will simulate the same experience. Like, my hair went up on my arm. I was like, you can see my breath. It's like, the dew point's 72 degrees.
Yeah.
It's like there's science behind why it's happening. It's not paranormal.
Right. Sure.
But if you want to just say it's paranormal, then, look at all the evidence we got.
Exactly. So, well, let me ask you this then too. So when you do a team investigation, you've got so much data, even, with the psychic walkthrough, which I love that you guys, do that with the psychic and be controlled, keep them blind as possible, and the other investigators too. Do you go, because there's so much data, there's so much video and audio, do you guys have people who were not at the investigation doing review of the data?
No.
Okay.
Because when we do the base, those people are people that aren't part of the investigation, and they're watching it. So as the team is in the house and someone's writing down what that team is doing, they're part of that team.
Right.
There's somebody at base that's documenting, because we do floor plans, so we'll have a map of the house, and I'll know that they're in room number 1, and the camera shows room number 1, microphone shows room number 1. We'll have a log sheet at base where they wrote Team A went into room number 1 at this time, and then when they hear somebody go, I think I heard a growl. So they'll document, like, what time was it? We have a clock to keep track of, like, this is the time, and say at this time we heard a growl. So we only need to review. Now, at base, if they heard it too, then they'll document that and say, I heard it too. But if they didn't, then it was something that only happened there. So it's more for a reference of, if something happened at 10:37 in room number 1, we can go to that point specifically. Okay. We're not going to go home and then review everything afterwards. There could be examples where, the painting moves on the wall. So you put a video camera, and you point at the photo, the image on the wall, and then you run it for 6 hours. Right. You're just going to go fast forward, rewind, review it at high speed, so you can see it going. You'll see it move over time, or just where it started and where it ended. And if it's the same place, maybe in the middle it moved. But for the efficiency of time, the hardest thing is, it's easy to get people to volunteer to attend and participate in investigation. Right. Let's go to Darren's house and sit in the basement with headphones on for 12 hours. Not a big lineup.
Not very inviting, huh?
No. So it was tasked for each investigator. If you have an audio recorder doing for EVP work, I'm going to make a copy of your digital audio, and I want to keep that on my hard drive. I expect you to listen to your audio and tell me what you have. Yeah. That way, if they find something, I don't want them to send me the file of what they found. I'm going to find it on my copy.
Yes, because sometimes
filtering,
it's on one file, but not on the copy. Or it's on the copy and not on the original file.
So I've never been able to prove that out. That does happen. So I've heard of EVPs that happen. It wasn't recorded, but the listener hears it after the fact, and then they go back and they listen to it. So there's always is it the observer, or is it the information they're observing?
Yeah.
Because some people will audibly hear EVPs. They'll hear the voice that the recorders aren't picking up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, what's the line here? I mean, I've had instances where I've been reviewing my own audio, and I don't get crazy. I have one audio recorder, and I'll usually set it somewhere.
Yeah.
And, going through and listening, and then I'll hear, at the Walker Ames, I'll hear a strange noise or a familiar noise that I know to be unexplainable. And then I'll be like, ooh, okay. And I, write down the time, because I did not notate that or make a mention on my audio if I just heard something. I don't know what it was. And then I'll hear it as I'm listening, and then go back, and then, well, now I can't hear it anymore. It's not there. I guess I would have to, compare the sound waves from playing it one time to the next, but
yeah,
it is a weird phenomenon.
Yeah, it really is. But we found that after getting all of this data captured, and it made you want to go back to the roots of, why don't we just make a small team? We're going to go in with the psychic, with someone to observe and document, and a tech and a videographer, and that 4-piece unit is what goes through the house, and then send in team number 2 and do it, and just take the written report to get the gist of what's going on.
Yeah.
Because at the end of this process, you've got a family that has unanswered questions, and if they have to wait till you finish reviewing 800 hours of audio and video,
oh my God,
and you're going to say, listen to the audio, do you hear it? That is not going to make them feel better.
Right.
If anything, it's going to make them feel worse. They don't want to be, yes, you have rats, and here they are. You just want to be told they're gone. or they're not really rats, they're muskrats from Germany, and they actually speak English. You want some resolution or explanation as to what you've been experiencing. So the quest for evidence, I still like to do the base to be able to observe and let more people observe the same phenomena at the same time. But most of the time, if the client's watching, they spend the whole time pointing at the dust orbs and convincing themselves that their house is more haunted than they ever imagined. And
right.
No, don't let the client see the monitors.
Yeah.
It's to have the team go in and pick up what they pick up, and then we debrief afterwards and say, so just based on what you had happened, and you have your notes in front of you, what were the high water points? What were the things that you say resonated or happened? And since we know what the story was initially from the clients, we can see which things relate to what's going on, and we can kind of say that's a match. Like there's some correlation here, or it has nothing to do with what they're saying. So if there's a correlation, then we'll attribute some of the things that happen to it does lend credence to what they've experienced.
It's more evidence.
Evidence is such a weird word.
It's not proof.
Data.
It's not proof.
Not
the data can bore out evidence of unexplained things. That's kind of how I try and think about it.
Yeah. Okay. I could go along with that. But it's kind of when we get the kind of the synopsis of what happened to each team, and this is the part that always blows me away, is when you have multiple teams go through and they all come back and the experience can be mirrored in that back room over there, that closet door. I am picking up like something bad happened with the child.
Okay.
And that's okay. It's like, okay, so that's what you picked up. That's good. No, I can't question that. It's what you picked up. That's why I asked you to do this. And then have another team go through and they pick up exactly the same thing, but maybe a different layer of, a man used to stand in front of here and wouldn't let the child out. And to see how there's all these facets to the same situation, especially when they all kind of line up to be the same, and then it relates to what the homeowner has. Then there's something we can do, and then we'll get together after and say, okay, team, we all have these things. These are the things that we've all kind of agreed happened here. What do you think we should do? What do you think would help them? And sometimes they just need to understand. We need to help the homeowners understand more about the spirit activity that we're picking up here, and their motivation or intent. That independent people all felt the same thing was going on. And we don't sell it as, these are the facts, ma'am. This is what happened. John Driscoll from 1952 is occupying your lower level basement. We just say we have 3 people that are sensitive to the energies, and this is what they felt was going on. And let them come to the that is matching what my experiences are.
Right.
It's like, and they know our protocol. So it's like, they're not just repeating back what I told them. These people don't know what I told you guys. And oftentimes the psychic team will kind of reveal things that they experienced that the homeowner goes, that was one of the things I never mentioned to you guys, which I love, because that gives even more credence to what people are picking up.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool how your protocols and how you've come up with them and how you do things, because it sounds, as you're kind of walking us through here, you've really kind of found that good balance of, having so many layers of data, a lot of it, tangible data, audio files, video files. But then you've also kind of got the untangible, the non-tangible, the psychic experience as well. And you've kind of found
science.
Soft science. Yes. You've kind of found this good balance of how do you make it all work together, and does it help the client? Like you said, you guys, what do we do now? We've got this. What do we do? So you've kind of, how long did it take you to develop in your team and how you work to find that good balance that you've got going?
It was something that we always had, but we're very reactive to modifications that may have been needed.
Sure.
So it's like every rule that you read about, that the lip on the coffee cup that says, caution, this may burn you if you spill it on your crotch.
Yeah.
It's like, why did you write that? Because someone burned their crotch. So all the processes, procedures were developed because something happened that wasn't supposed to happen, or people did something that didn't help the investigation.
Yeah.
So let's make it a part of the protocol.
Yeah, born out of experience. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's almost every paragraph from the WSPIR training manual comes from, that's what happened in 1967 at, on the Ferris wheel. And there's a reason for it, because there's a reason behind everything. So when I see any type of user manual, it's because and it's a stupid instruction. It's because someone did it wrong. And so now someone has to write that for liability purposes.
Yes.
But we had that dynamic changing protocols to reflect what was working or what wasn't working. But it really is because of all the team members that we had.
Yeah.
What I always say is, WSPIR isn't me. WSPIR is you. WSPIR is each and every individual member. Because me by myself, I'm just sitting here with a lot of cameras and microphones. With the sensitivity of old Yeller. Like, sure, I cry at sad movies and stuff. And I've had weird things happen that I cannot explain.
Yeah.
Whereas I got to leave the room because the little girl doesn't like me was one thing. And everybody looked at me and was like, what the hell is Darren talking about? And the psychic in the room goes, yeah, there's a little girl here and she really doesn't like men. So when Darren came into the room, she backed away. But as soon as Darren left, she came back. But I walked into the room and went, oh, here's the meter. I'm leaving because a little girl doesn't like me or something. It's like, where'd that come from? So I have no idea. But I'm open to the possibility. So it's not like, oh, that can't be. It's, I'm totally cool with it. If it happens, it happens. But, I'm not upset if like, oh, I'm not picking up anything. I just take it as the gift that it is when it happens.
Sure. One of my questions I had for you was just kind of, as far as belief and experience and that sort of thing, where do you kind of put yourself as far as believer, open skeptic? It sounds like you're right in that open skeptic range there.
I've had enough things happen that can't be explained.
Mm-hmm.
See, I use the word can't be explained.
Yes.
So I can't explain it. I can't say that is the definitive, that's because of the spirit of someone who passed, or that is the spirit of a teenager who's actually a living agent that's freaking out and her energy is causing her energy to move better. It's like, these are all theories and they're all possible. So I can't say that's not possible. I just know there's something there. There is things that are out there. Sometimes it leads it into, it's definitely your father who passed, or it's built up cosmic energy from the ley lines, and
right.
It will always find a way of justifying what happened by some esoteric means. So I'm just open to, there's more than what science has defined, or science as defined today.
Yep.
We may find that all of the, I don't know, the 5G's causing my cats to meow.
Yeah.
That maybe it's true. Like maybe there is something that's actually causing these things to happen. Maybe it's just another element that we don't know about.
Exactly.
I'm just so wide open to things. So the cryptozoology, those aspects of things, it's like, and everyone gives the example of, we're finding new species every day in the Amazon, therefore it's possible. Like, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if that's the reason why there's a cryptid, because there's things we're finding in the Amazon today. But there's too many people that I've met. The greatest joy of WSPIR is meeting all the other people.
Sure.
It's the social interaction. The team members, WSPIR has just the greatest team members. Like I said, it wouldn't be WSPIR without these people. Each person brings another facet to what we do.
Right.
It's amazing. I look at the room of people that are in WSPIR and think, these people would not be on a cruise ship together. They're from such different areas or aspects of life, or where they are in their life.
Yeah.
And they're all collaborating together and respectfully citing their opinion about something. And people are listening with respect and then adding what their viewpoint is and why. Not trying to change or convince anybody, but it just helps in that the client, you don't know what their viewpoint is. And inevitably, every case we've ever done, there's somebody on the team that's had a similar example, a similar experience, or has a similar background that develops that connection with the client to be that person that they talk to and confide in.
Yeah.
We just like can't believe it. It's so gratifying to see that. Jill and I go, it's so good to see the kids getting along.
Yeah, well, that's not that common.
I guess, but it's always been just such good respect and good energy. We've always felt that good energy breeds good results, and it was because of that good energy that we had such tremendous opportunities to do things that otherwise it's like I'd never dream of doing some of the things that we've done, but we did them, and we were very appreciative of them, and that's been
and one thing I've talked about on the show before in regards to the paranormal and investigation research, whatever you want to call it, is before you do any of that, figure out your intention, and even at each investigation, what's the intention to investigate here? And you guys kind of nailed that down early, which I think laid the groundwork for everything else to kind of fall into place, obviously with some developing and tweaking, like you said, modifications and stuff. So that's really cool. Well, I want to ask you about some of your experiences that have left you going, and I know you spent a lot of time in New Orleans. And could you tell us about was the bed and breakfast with all the lights?
Wow. Okay, so there was a bed and breakfast, but
once
the
upon
lights.
A time.
So, as part of the wireless community, there's a wireless conference that goes on every year somewhere in the United States, and it's for tens of thousands of people. So it's got to be a big place. So that's Vegas. It's going to be New Orleans. So in this case, the wireless conference is in New Orleans. So I'd spend the day at the conference, and Jill made friends with a tour guide that gave ghost tours as well as historical tours of botany and beauty of the Garden District and also of the French Quarter. And so we became friends with her.
Okay.
And kept in touch with her from that point. And then at one point we were members of AGOS at that time.
Okay.
And we came back to AGOS and said, we actually have access to multiple mansions in the Garden District that all have haunts that are part of the Haunted History Tour. The owners are allowing us access to their house.
Wow.
So we had access to multiple mansions. So we all made a trip up there and spent probably about a week up in New Orleans.
Okay.
So I was at one of the mansions. It's the largest mansion in the Garden District, known as the Buckner Mansion.
Okay.
Buckner Mansion. And we got the wrong name. But it is the largest mansion in the Garden District.
Okay.
Zambito. Charles Zambito was the owner of the house.
Okay.
So we went to this mansion, and he had a historian that lived on site who had crazy things happen to her.
Wow.
And so she's in the main room. So it's kind of the style of the house I'm living in now.
Okay.
With the Greek columns in the center. And then between each pillar would be a room that goes from the front to the back of the house. The center, a hallway that went from the front to the back, and then the other side, and that was the living room. I don't have a hallway down the middle, but they did. And down that center hallway, there were 3 chandeliers, and they were made in such a way that they could be lowered so that the young man of the house could light the gas lantern and then raise them back up again.
Raise them back up, okay.
So to be able to do this, they had a series of cantilevers and weights.
Okay.
So these weights were the objects that were hanging. Well, better not look obscene. They were hanging from the lantern. And And if you've seen any of those momentum objects where you push an object, the momentum's going to move it, and then it's going to come back, and then the arc will decrease over time.
Correct.
Well, if you push the chandelier, all those objects would get the same momentum, and then they'd be. So these 5 balls, the counterweights, they're about like 35 pounds each, all started moving in different orbits. So I noted, it's like, there's no way I could have pushed this and simulated these things moving in the different directions that they were.
Okay.
I'm looking at logically thinking, the wind must have gusted through the house and blown against it, and some had more wind than the others because they were blocked by objects, but it wasn't even going in the same direction. And I had an EMF meter. That was back when I was young, and EMF meant ghost. And I had the EMF meter, and I'm waving it around. And I actually knew what an EMF meter did, but there was more emitting energy there than there was anywhere else. And it wasn't because the lights were on, because we tested it against the other 2 lights that were identical, but they were not moving at all. It was just that one lamp. And what led us to noticing it is Andy was a historian. We were going through the historical record book that she had created. And as she's turning the pages, she's explaining the history of the house and who lived there and the relationships between them and how it tied to the hauntings. And she mentioned about the lanterns and the lamps and how they were handled and managed by the staff to light them. And the owner came in from behind us and said, "Did you guys hit that lantern?" Now, I'm 5'4" on a good day. Andy was shorter than I was. So unless we were a circus act, there was no way the 2 of us could have hit those lanterns, the chandeliers, to make them move. So that was the first, like, this is something physical. So for me, if it's something like, oh, did you pick up on that sensation of, honey and salt? And it's like, that's too ethereal for me. This was physical things, physical activity of lamps moving. And it wasn't an investigation then. It was me getting background information from the historian in the daytime. So I called back to the hotel and said, "Hey, we're a paranormal group and investigating paranormal. Well, we've got it happening now. Do we come back at 7 for our appointment, or do we come now?"
Yeah.
So everyone, did the best to show up now. It was kind of like crazy that, disorganized, that we all kind of showed up to try to do the best that we could to do the investigation.
Yeah, because it was happening.
House. Yeah, it was happening. It's like, that's kind of why we're here, and we've got something happening, so let's do something here. So that was the most remarkable thing. But there was a bed and breakfast that we stayed at the initial time we were there, and it was called the Castle Inn. It's now a private home, but we stayed there. So I was on one of my business trips, and we're watching the, every Halloween they have the most haunted hotels to travel in, stay there yourself. And so we went and booked this thing. And it was before we were in any paranormal group. And we thought, how cool. We're newlyweds, and we're at this haunted hotel.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. And we both slept with our eyes open and the lights on. But we do little things like I'd put my shoes down a specific way at night. And one night, all my laces were stretched taut, heading towards the counter, the little dresser that was beside the bed. And I was like, I didn't set my shoelaces like that.
Yeah.
And towels would disappear, and the guests that were staying with us, like, this place was known to be haunted, and people would show us pictures of it, and a lot of it was smears in the mirror. You could, you can see an actual face in that mirror. It's like, oh my God, I can see a face. Like, but I can see a train in the cloud, but I'm pretty sure it's not really a train in the cloud. Right. But I can't deny it does look like that. So that's where a lot of it is, you're telling people it's a haunted place. You're going into a haunted place. You're taking a picture and you see something that looks like something. Therefore, that's evidence of that's what it is. But the people's fear and the things where people's keys would disappear and show up in the microwave oven. And there was just so much going on. And I'm a social person. I got to know the owners of the Castle Inn, the keepers of the keys, basically. They didn't own it, but they had all these experiences of, like, where the staff would go in, the towels would be gone, they'd go back in, they'd be back again. So just things like that. That was like, I was on the front row of hearing ghost stories that I always loved as a kid. It's not reading about it that somebody retranscribed. It was the person who experienced it is telling me.
Yeah, at firsthand.
There's nothing trippier than that. And so that hooked us forever.
Yeah.
And then to be able to help people through these experiences. And another time in New Orleans, we followed this tour guide. There's tour guides everywhere. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a tour guide in the head. Well, one guy was in period costume, and we had just finished a ghost walk in the French Quarter, and it was kind of humid and not so much foggy, but there was kind of atmosphere, like nighttime misty kind of stuff.
Yeah, hazy kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and this guy was just talking to someone else, and we stood beside them waiting. You wait for someone to politely finish a conversation as they went, and we asked him some questions, and he said, "Oh, you want to go down to the tipsy teacup or the teacup place that's haunted," and he was describing that to us. And Jill and I turned to look down the street, and when we turned back, he wasn't there.
What?
And it's like, okay, so an average man, 5'4", walking at 10 miles an hour would only be able to get this far by this amount of time. And you'd hear him, like he would have to be scrambling like an Olympic runner to get out of our view in time.
Yeah. Be like, so like, cartoon running.
Yeah. Like, it was just one of those things where we both were talking to him.
Yeah.
He was as real as you or I, but yet he disappeared. So it's one of those things where, well, he must have like walked fast, or he slipped around a corner and we're not aware. It's one of those things where I can't prove he disappeared, right? But I cannot explain how quickly he left.
Weird.
And that same ghost tour, we're walking down the street, and Jill and I, as you see, we're a very loving couple, and I was holding her hand, we're walking, we're guiding, and when you're walking down the street and you could hear someone's footfall behind you,
sure.
And to be polite, you kind of push over to allow them the room to pass you.
Right.
I heard the footfalls and was so confident that somebody was there. I put my arm around Jill and pulled her in to make that space.
Right.
There was no one behind us. And it's like, okay, that just happened. So there was just so many cool experiences in New Orleans that just hooked me. And Carla, the tour guide, we subsequently went back to New Orleans as WSPIR, and we did things there and went all over the place, and the Myrtles and all that crazy stuff in St. Francisville. But I said, I had the opportunity to do this, to walk through these mansions in New Orleans as a ghost hunter, an investigator. So I've always been so respectful of the people who have allowed me in. It's like, who else would give you the keys to their house? It's like, so you're the ghost hunters I called from the internet. Here's my keys. I'm going to stay at a hotel and just leave them under a mat and call me when you're finished.
Yeah, like my safe's under the bed.
That level of trust is just, it's something I do not take for granted. And it's humbling that people put that trust in you. And so it gives you that responsibility that you want to be able to do something for them and help them out.
Yeah.
So to be able to help them out is just so satisfying. It makes you want to help someone else. And some people can't be helped.
Sure. And you have to take into consideration mental health.
Yeah. How do you say that? It's like,
how do you say it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there's always a thing that's not talked about a lot is, what is a paranormal group's liability in investigating in a private home?
Well, that's a good question for an insurance company.
Yeah, indeed. And there's a lot of groups that I've spoken to over the many years that will not do private homes for that very reason.
Yeah.
They won't do public places.
Yeah, it's just, what do you want to take on? What's your intention? Because if you have the intention to do private residence, you'll do things in a way. Or maybe you have forms that release liability, or you'll be organized to do that. But it's about your intention. And so, well, let's growing up, you mentioned cryptozoology, fascinated with aliens and ghosts. That's through growing up. What was I want to ask you first, what was your first historical passion? What was the first thing that you were like gravitated towards and you wanted to research everything about it? History wise, what was kind of what got you really into history?
It would be hearing the story of something occurring at this location and then being able to research it.
Okay.
So it wasn't like a specific, like I can't say it's like the War of 1812 was so compelling to me. I just had to find everything out about it. It was more mundane. It was just like
Mm-hmm.
Going through archival newspapers and seeing that, like in the history of Seattle, all the things that happened. And
Mm-hmm.
what's funny is most of the good tour guides in any city, they've done historical research on the hauntings to give it the authenticity of there was a person that existed and this crime did occur and was committed.
Yep.
And that just gives so much more layers to it. It just makes it more meaningful. And so
exactly,
everyone has a history. Even going through your own personal history and find out who your grandfather was and where he lived. And just doing my own research, I found out that my family came from England and then came to Newfoundland. But Newfoundland wasn't part of Canada at the time they went there, so they were still kind of moved from England to England.
Oh, okay.
And then moved into Montreal. So just to see that passage, and seeing how that happened. And when we bought the house here, I did historical research on the house and who lived here, and did ancestry on the people who lived here, because there'd be stories that people would write about the individual who lived here that would lead more into what happened in the house. And so it's just what's it called? Fox hunt. A rabbit hole.
pulling a thread, or
exactly,
and see what you get. Oh, that's really cool. For me, it was and the reason I came up with that question was I was just curious if there was a certain thing that really got, because the Civil War was something that I would say got me into, or at least made me realize I really like history and thinking about it and trying to put myself there and think about what it was like. And, that's just the fun of it. And so the Civil War was for me kind of the first
It was funny. I was going to actually say the Civil War because I really got into it. And I had all kinds of books and diaries from people that lived during the Civil War that talked about the experiences. And Lee and Grant and the different incursions. And when I did my traveling with T-Mobile, I do radio certification conformance testing. Like, Darren, tell me more.
I'm actually going to ask you about that.
But it would be basically all the people who know a lot about that topic of testing would meet on a quarterly basis. And we would meet in a different place in North America. And I attended international meetings. So I'd have the opportunity to go to Copenhagen when I was part of the TAPS family, and met up with the TAPS family member in Copenhagen. And so I got picked up at the hotel. All the executives that I traveled with were standing in the lobby watching this hearse pull up. And Darren's like, bye-bye.
Will we ever see him again?
And I found out that I was on Danish television at this investigation that the news team had covered. And everyone's like, shoot the foot, I had no idea what was going on. It's like, we put an American inside the child's room with headphones.
And we've thrown away the key.
Yes. But it was awesome. Like, I was in Kronenberg Castle, in the place where they tortured prisoners by pushing a wall into the corner and making the wall closer, the movable wall closer and closer until they were crushed to death.
God.
And doing EVPs in that space. That's morbid.
Yeah. Yes.
But the history, it's like, this is real ancient history. It's Civil War. That's like, I know people who are still alive.
Exactly. Well, did you have any like really good personal experiences in some of the really old locations while you were over there? Did you have any kind of like, where you got, your fight or flight kicked in?
I wish I could say, oh my God, yes.
Okay.
No. Maybe it was the love of the history that just had me like open mouthed and like, oh my God, I'm here.
Yeah.
Someplace I read about in a book or saw on TV, and I'm physically here in that building.
Yeah.
It was just, an appreciation for little
Yeah.
old me is fortunate enough to
Yeah.
be paid to travel to come to this place to do this. So it wasn't really a scary thing.
Yeah, and I didn't mean scary or anything, but just kind of
I
like
guess
where
like
you're
a
like,
big
"Whoa, what was that?"
experience.
Yeah, a good experience. Yeah. Not necessarily scared, but just something where you were like, "Okay, I'm here now."
Nothing stands out, funny enough.
Yeah. And that's totally I mean, honestly, that's how it goes a lot with
Don't
paranormal
I
research too.
almost used the safe word,
Uh-oh.
but it's okay. It got you past it. It's okay.
All right, thanks.
I told Pete if there's something uncomfortable, I'm going to use the safe word, and we have to stop talking about it.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. So, and I know Jill had recently posted a picture, but the Y rod dowsing, and you got
Mhm.
to try some of that while you were over there, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
they had a
talk a little bit about that.
scientist. So it was the same trip to Copenhagen, and it was Shane Eno was the gentleman who was
Okay.
part of the Taps family for Denmark.
Mhm.
No longer into the paranormal, but I follow him on Facebook. And he follows me.
Yeah.
He had a member of his team that was a doctor or a physicist that did the homing capability of missile guidance systems.
Okay.
And he did slides, the old projector where you put the piece of
Yeah.
paper and it projects on the wall. I went into his home. I was like, what a trip. I'm being invited to this gentleman's home, and he's going to teach me about this art of divining. And so he explained the Earth's energy lines. That their theory was there's the Curie and the Hartmann lines, and there's a grid all across the Earth that
Okay.
consists of these, and that paranormal phenomenon occurs at the intersection. Wait, intersection. I'm glad I'm able to do graphics like that.
Yeah.
That where these intersection points are, that's where phenomenon would happen. So they would go at the house where phenomenon was occurring. They would walk around the house, the perimeter, with their dowsing rods, and they would find the Hartmann and Curie lines. They would then
Okay.
draw these Hartmann and Curie lines superimposed on the map. And they said that where people had experiences, like at the foot of the bed or in the kitchen by the toaster, those physical locations where phenomenon seemed to be occurring was at a
Okay.
line of intersection of the Hartmann and Curie lines.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to look those up. That's
And
really
then he
interesting.
also had these, they're little pyramids, and it's like someone just took this acrylic and then put washers and bolts and all kinds of metal and copper filings and marbles and crystals. And these things, they had some that were apparently tuned to specific frequencies to disrupt the Hartmann and Curie line.
Weird.
So,
Okay.
so I'm listening to this, and he had me up to, okay, the energy of the lines and the dowsing rod. He had little yellow or red slugs inside these straws or these, and he said that you hold them at the yellow for the Curie. So I can remember that Curie yellow,
Yep.
and then red for the Hartmann lines. And so you would do this, and you would basically be resonant frequency. So the sympathetic harmony, like if you have a guitar tuner, and you rest it against the body of your guitar, the
Yep.
A string will vibrate by itself.
Right. Right.
It's resonating with that.
Okay.
That's the concept, that the dowsing rod is resonating with the frequency of the Hartmann or the Curie line. So it will dip, and douse apparently was German for dip, or to the action of it bobbing. So you
Okay.
put it under pressure, so it was almost about to bob because you're pushing too hard, and then you would walk across the field, and when the field was strongest, it would douse down to where that line was.
Okay.
And so I could buy that concept of the resonance of the wavelength.
Yeah.
And that's how we found the lines. When he said he created these little things that would disrupt the energy, then he lost me. It's like, that's like if I put a TV antenna up in front of your house, you won't get TV anymore because I've taken the signal.
Yeah.
It's like everyone gets the signal. It's not like, too many people are between you and the tower. So I could not rationalize how this thing worked.
Sure.
So I told Shane, I said, I'm not sure about this. He goes, here's what we did. We had a house that had activity. We installed these, and they would put copper rods into the ground as well, like you'd ground a house.
Okay.
And he would install these in the path on the outside. So if the line went through the center of the house, he would break that line on the outside of the house so it wouldn't go through the house.
Okay.
So he put these disruptors, as he called them, in the path.
Okay.
Well, he would put them in, but not tell the family that. He would give them to the family. Because I thought, I bet you sell these. He goes, oh yeah, we sell them. It's like, it sounds like snake oil. Like, you have a haunt, buy 17 of my little pyramids and place them around your house. So they would basically had a guarantee, put them in your house and try them. And if they don't work, give them back and you're done. And if they work, still give them back and we'll replace them with new ones for you.
Oh, interesting.
And so that gave it more credibility. It's like, if it didn't work, then they wouldn't use them. And it was working for them. And they had different size ones depending on the severity. And he went outside and he started pointing to neighbors' houses. Goes, he just installed a wall. That wall is deflecting the curry line and putting it into my bedroom. And I can't sleep in my room because the energy is too high because of his diversion of this. So I installed this copper rod here on my property. And he was so fascinating to talk with. And the picture that Jill shared, we were at a Viking burial mound in Copenhagen. So it was it was very old. And he had me go around, and there was another gentleman that was new to the group, and he was doing the dowsing as well. And they said, walk around this rock, and you tell me where your dowsing parts are. So I would walk around this burial mound, and my rod would dip. And I just I don't know if it's me or I'm just,
sure.
Here. And then we compared it to the other guys. And then the good doctor came by, goes, you've picked out the Hartman and Curry lines. He goes, notice you've got 6 lines and they all intersect on this Viking burial mound. This is a position of power, a power source. And so when we did the investigation, we went around the house and he had me do the Hartman Curry lines around the house. The other new member did the same thing and we compared maps and we were pretty much the same.
Wow.
And so it was like a way of divining the Hartman and Curry.
Interesting. Well, that's something to think about. I mean, it just makes me wonder around here because in Port Gamble, as I hear all the time, it just feels different here, and I kind of agree with that. I feel it, to it. There's just some sort of different energy, and I've always wondered if ley lines had something to do with that. But I tried to research that, and there was 20 different maps I found that said 20 different things. So. Yeah. I didn't know what to, but none of them had a ley line in Port Gamble or near, so I was like, all right.
So I took their information as that's the philosophy and concept that they're doing. And and he built experiments where he knows where the Hartman and Curry line is in his house. So he had masking tape on his floor and he'd have me walk from this room to that room and find out where it was, and then I'd look down and sure enough I was over the piece of red tape or the piece of blue tape.
That's cool.
So it's one of those that was proven by actually doing. I didn't trust myself and I didn't do it enough. There's no muscle memory in it, but I was blessed with being trained by this guy on how to do it.
That's really cool.
He had a binder with slideshows and it was absolutely amazing. I was humbled by the experience of being able to experience that.
Wow.
Just
so cool. It's really interesting stuff. And it just lends to my approach with the paranormal is we don't know much and anything's possible, and that's something that kind of fits into that label sort of thing.
But don't you find it so hard to say that anything is possible when someone presents you with something that is so far left or so far right that it's that's not even my open concept of possibility. It's I just have to say no.
I'm a little more, maybe out in space than you. Then I don't know. I'm always oh well, I don't know. Sure.
It's one of those, I'll invest some energy into that, but way over there, the talking pickles, I don't know. Maybe
sure,
but I'm not gonna
Let me know if you ever find the talking pickles. That'd be interesting.
It'd be a very high pitched sound.
Yeah.
You
Sounds
get
like
EVPs. Yeah.
No, that's not mice. That's talking pickles.
Yeah, talking pickles.
Well, I want to talk tech with you. We've got about 15 minutes, and I wanted to pick your brain because you do this for a living, the radio testing, radio frequencies, and it's something I'm trying to learn more about, and how that can affect an environment, how that can affect people. So in the work that you do, you're testing for, was it radio waves or radio frequencies?
I'm testing for conformance to 3GPP specifications.
Okay. I don't know what that is, but
yeah. So a lot of it has to do with the ability to selectively listen to a frequency.
Okay.
So like we're all living it now.
Out of many signals.
Out of many. It's like a channel on a TV.
Okay.
Your phone has to be tuned into that specific channel.
Right.
Or it's just, not all phones pick up everything.
Right.
And there's a timing of it. The phone that you bought in 1990 is going to work like crap this year. Right. The phone you bought yesterday is going to have 5G. So each one is like technology, and a different frequency is involved with these. Sometimes the frequency remains the same, but the concept of frequency is you have an antenna that's emitting a signal. Okay. You have devices that are going to receive the signal.
Okay.
Their antenna must be kind of tuned to that frequency. Think of the resonance of the guitar string. That A string is not going to vibrate when you're sending out a D note. Right. It's only going to vibrate when you send out an A note. Right. So it's that kind of thing where that's a selectivity. So the frequency element is, there's different frequencies. They're all around us all the time. It's not just when you're getting a call that your phone is actually transmitting.
Right.
If for you older people, for you young people, if you don't know what an AM radio is, do you ever put your cell phone on top of your AM radio?
Sweet I haven't tried
Jesus. It. Yeah, like you could use it to find an electrical storm. I think there's a storm coming, and the AM radio is going.
Oh, geez.
You put a cell phone on it, it picks up because it's just picking up the emissions of your cell phone, the radiation of your cell phone. Okay. Just like you can feel the heat from a motor that's running. Mm-hmm. Anything that's plugged in and is generating a radio signal is emitting that radiation. And you've all heard of the FCC.
Yes.
And they protect us from harm. They don't want your phone to cause harm to your brain because you hold your phone to your head. So they do exhaustive testing that there's a specific limit to how strong the signal can be when it's held against your head.
Okay.
So that means the signal's only going up to your head. So it's not going too much further than that.
Right. Okay.
And different frequencies have different characteristics. Mm-hmm. A low frequency, think of AM radio. How long is the antenna for AM radio? It's like you're pouring out. You feel like you're in World War II going through a bunker.
Yeah.
And then you had FM radio, and it was a cute little bow tie.
Yep. Oh, might have a spotty internet connection. Okay, we'll see if we can get Darren back. Internet, speaking of frequencies and all that. So put it out there. How important do you think EMF and RF is, on an investigation? How important is it to kind of get the base readings? Is that something that people who are investigators out there, like, how important is it for you to find man-made signals of EMF? Because I was going to ask Darren, well, how does, there's all these frequencies around, just, everywhere with our phones, and they're just there. How can they affect, an audio device? How could they affect a computer that's doing monitoring of the investigation? What are your thoughts out there as far, and how important is it to detect EMF or RF on an investigation? So I'll just put that out there, and we'll see if we can get Darren back here. And also, if you want to feel free to share about our history conversation we were having, what was your first like passion for history? What was the thing that kind of made you realize you really love history? And put it in the comments there, and we'll talk about it here. Like I said, mine was like Civil War, and then I would say any of the ancient stuff, ancient Greeks, the Romans, Egyptians, Mesopotamians, anything that was ancient. The city of Alexandria, all that kind of stuff's really, really fascinating to me. Do you like the same things? What got you into history? What subject was it? And then also, if you want to comment too, what coming up in your life, what was, if you were interested in the paranormal? Shirley says Port Townsend Victorian homes. That's a great one. That's a great one. Those beautiful homes up there. And especially if you can go into some of those homes, that will give you, just kind of put you right into the history. Susanna, thank you. Ancient Egypt. Yep. Me too. I don't know why, just, do you guys have the feeling out there when you think, you're watching a program or reading a book on this certain part in history, do you almost like put yourself there? How does it affect you? For me, it's like I'm always like want to try. What was it like? What was it like to be a Civil War soldier or someone in ancient Egypt? What was it like? What are some other places? And then also, anybody listening out there, I said, Beth, hey, thanks for watching. My family used to be a part of Civil War reenactment group when I was young, so that puts you right into almost like a living history. And if you've never been to a Civil War reenactment, they're a lot of fun, and it's really cool. I like the cannons. I mean, who wouldn't like that? Maybe dogs, but I certainly find that enjoyable. So yeah, I mean, I think how has that history affected you? And then also, what were some of the paranormal researchers that you were influenced by growing up? Was it Hans Holzer? Who was it? Go ahead and comment that as well. And we're kind of coming up towards the end of the show anyways, and what a fun conversation with Darren. Hopefully we can get him back here. Thanks, Todd, for trying. But so coming up, just a review as well. Go ahead and comment your answers about the history stuff as I talk here. But the Warrens, okay, they influenced a lot of people for sure. I'm starting to Edgar Casey. Yep, that's another prominent one. I'm starting to learn. Let's see. Fantasize of living a prior life in the 1800s. Yeah. What does that do? What did you try to do with the history? Yeah. Same thing for me, like with Civil War. What was that like? What was it like to be there, to hear the sounds, what did the clothes feel? Looks like we got Darren back. Oh, hey, Darren. Okay, you might be on mute for real this time.
Yes, I was.
He tricked me earlier.
Yeah, my knee hit my laptop that's on my beside me on the side of my leg, and it fell and unplugged cables, and I could hear you.
Was it a poltergeist?
No, it was me with a precariously placed laptop.
Okay. So, well, let's get back into it.
So the effect of radio waves.
Yeah,
so,
I was leading to
yeah.
How can that affect, somebody's experience in their home? Like, are you finding high radio waves or radio frequencies, and they're having the same effects as like prolonged exposure or even short exposure to high EMF? Is it the same sort of effects?
So, like I mentioned about the FCC doing their analysis of SAR, specific absorption rate, of the energy entering your skin, your tissues. So, the World Health Organization, has done exhaustive studies over many, many years about the effects of cell phone or any type of radiation and the effects on humans. And so there was a lot of association that some of the negative effects that people have, they termed it EMF hypersensitivity.
Okay.
That you could be hypersensitive, like an allergy almost, to radio waves, and you would react to the presence of radio waves. Like an allergy where I can be in the environment with the allergen and not sneeze or get itchy, and someone else will, like, their eyes will puff up and they'll sneeze and like almost need an EpiPen.
Sure.
So it's that kind of thing. So I related that to this EMF hypersensitivity. People, if they were in a strong EMF field, would react like paranoia, like somebody's looking at me. There's somebody else in the room. I can sense something around
Somebody
me.
behind me, or yeah.
Exactly. So there was to that effect. Then there were also the effects of rash, skin tingling, sensations like headaches. So there was a lot of causation that people related to strong fields of EMF.
Okay.
So that was so it's paranormal. So you have to check for EMF, because if the EMF fields are high, that's what's causing it. Well,
Right.
it was never conclusive. And it's like a financial report. Depending on what you built the financial report for, it's going to give you the data that brings you to that conclusion.
Right.
Well, the 3 people that threw up, well, we won't count them. So they're not part of the study, and we'll use everybody else.
Right.
There's more rigor than that. But to me, it wasn't conclusive that EMF hypersensitivity is the reason that people think there's paranormal phenomenon. But for due diligence, we've had an example where a child would have horrible dreams at night, and we did EMF scans. Now, the EMF scan wasn't everywhere. Where do you spend the most time? It's usually in bed.
Yep.
And so where does your head reside in bed? So do EMF scans where the person's head is going to reside. If there's high fields of EMF there, then I can't say that that's what's causing your phenomenon, but I would recommend from a health standpoint, you should move your bed or find out what the field is being caused by and move it so the field is no longer in where your head is.
Right.
So this child, their bunk bed was basically near the fuse box.
On the other side of the wall?
It was actually in the room.
Oh, shoot.
Apartment's got to put them somewhere.
Yeah.
And so that's where the bunk bed, the second bunk, was up there. And when they moved the bunk bed, because of a recommendation of the EMF is high, and we cannot say that this is the cause, but it doesn't hurt to move it. And if it feels better, then win.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, all you did was move the bed, and you can move it back if you want. And all the bad dreams and the experience the child had disappeared as a result of that. So that added to my repertoire of I've seen it change things.
Right.
So I continue to do EMF scan to see where the people live and spend the most time, and if there's a strong field of EMF in that area. So I don't go to the extent of, well, that's 6,000 milligauss. It should be less than 400 milligauss. The machines aren't calibrated, so the numbers are irrelevant.
Right.
And you don't know what frequency it's picking up. So for an example, if I sent a 100 megahertz signal at the EMF meter is going to show it as a 5. Now, if I change the frequency to 300 megahertz, it's going to go up to a 7. Not because the signal is stronger, but because the antenna is tuned closer to the 700 megahertz than the 500 megahertz. And when you go to such a low frequency, the antenna just doesn't pick it up at all. So it's not that the signal isn't there. It's the meter isn't calibrated or tuned to pick up that frequency. Yeah. It's like trying to pick up UHF signal using a VHF radio.
Right.
And so when people go in and say, I swept it and there's no EMF anywhere in the room, there's no EMF for the frequencies your machine is calibrated for.
Right. Right.
There could be cellular signal that's bombarding the area that your meter's not calibrated for, so you're not going to see it.
Right. So do you, and I'm just trying to learn about RF and, EMF and how works together. So if let's say you go through with an EMF meter, okay, that measures milligauss, and you're going through, and you don't get anything, but you do go through and you with an RF meter, do you expect maybe that it's going to be different because different things just in the
I don't know what an RF meter is.
Or
EMF meter, I know.
something that looks for radio waves, or I don't know. There's got to be a meter for that, I'm sure.
So there's a spectrum analyzer. So if you've been following the
That's what I'm
Skinwalker series,
yeah,
if you've been following the Skinwalker series, they go around with spectrum analyzers, and what that does, it scans from a frequency of X to as high as Y.
Right.
And it just looks across there. It looks like grass. They call it actually the low-level noise, that line at the bottom. It's usually a green monitor, and there's thousands of little blades, so it looks like grass.
Right.
And then the peaks, the tall pieces of grass, that is a stronger, the length of the blade is the strength of the signal.
Okay.
And so each line across that is a different frequency.
Yeah.
So they can see what frequencies have modulation that are active and transmitting. So it's good to see that.
Okay.
But just because 9 gigahertz is being broadcast there, it doesn't mean
something's paranormal.
But doesn't mean it's paranormal, because there's so many things that transmit on a frequency, or the harmonics of a frequency. So harmonics, as a musician, it's kind of like octaves. Like you got a harmonic of, you're transmitting at this frequency, but it's also being seen at double that frequency, but probably half the signal.
Oh, okay.
So it may be designed for channel 1, but it's also broadcasting on channel 10 by accident, kind of thing.
Yeah. And maybe 15.
So there's the frequency without knowing what it's causing. What I liked it for is, if you were doing EVPs, and the concept that an EVP is a voice from a spirit that's in the room, and that's fine. Now add in the complexity of the ghost box, and you're scanning radio frequencies.
Yes.
So if you're scanning radio frequencies, if you know through a spectrum analyzer that there are no public broadcasts in that area, and it's so hard to find a place with no radio, especially AM radio, and that's what the ghost box is typically AM radio. You can get the ones that are FM, they're a little quieter, but there's very few radio locations that don't have a carrier, that don't have a station broadcasting. So how can you definitively say that the voice you picked up is not that of the radio broadcast, but of a paranormal phenomenon? You would have to be listening to every single broadcast at that same time and capture the broadcast of each broadcast to see if the sound you recorded was a composite of any of those signals.
Right. Gosh. That's too much to think about this time of night, Darren.
Yeah, no kidding. And I'm 2 hours later than you.
Yeah, well, it's the end of the show. We're going to wrap it up here, but so you're going to Phenomicon.
Yes.
That's a cool name. I'm fascinated by the UFO, the supposed UFO activity there, and I followed the show just because I got hooked. I was like, oh, this is so cool.
Buy the book, Hunt for Skinwalker.
Okay.
Where it talks about pre-Bigelow and what had happened there. So what I like about it is it's about interdimensional.
Yeah.
There's apparently experiences where the sky opens up with this silvery orb light, and then something comes through it and then lands on the ground.
Yeah.
But they've also seen things go into it and disappear.
Yeah.
This location in the Uinta Basin in Utah has lots of experiences of cattle mutilations.
Yeah.
Which for some reason is always attributed to UFOs. Is it? I don't know. There's a lot of UFO sightings. There's a lot of cryptid sightings.
Yes.
With the Bigfoot type of phenomenon, with strange animals like, what are they called?
Dog-like.
Okay, we'll go with dog-like.
Dog-like people.
They've never related to people, actually. It's always been, it's just this dog that came and just picked up the calf and chewed on it, and we shot it several times, and it just kind of looked at us like, and your name is, and just had no effect. There were stories where all the cattle were missing, and then they found them all in this little room that they could no way conceivably get into this room by themselves.
They were stacked up.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like just phenomenal information. So what I liked about the Skinwalker series is they're trying to put more science. When I see the equipment they're using, you're in the $200 to $400 range. That's not high-end equipment.
Yeah.
So it's better than nothing, but it's not the definitive, like a spectrum analyzer is hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you need multiple antennas to pick up the different frequencies, because the low frequency is completely different than the high frequency. And it's like the example of putting a UHF antenna on a VHF TV.
Yeah.
You can look all you want. It's just not optimized for that frequency. So you really have to have some optimization for the frequencies you're trying to look at. So when they say, oh, we're all the way from the 20 hertz to the 60 hertz, it's like, that's not really a lot.
Sure.
and they could do more triangulation with multiple signal receivers to see where the signal is stronger between site A, B, or C, and kind of triangulate where the source is. But I love the science behind it. It's a TV show, so my experience there is it's for ratings, and they're trying to capture it as accurately as possible. And all the cast is like, they don't tell us to do nothing, but some of the equipment is kind of hokey. And there's different types of EMF there. Like EMF is electromagnetic force or energies, and any AC signal or oscillating type of signal create this EMF.
Right.
DC does not create EMF. That's what your compass follows, is DC, is magnetic energy.
Right.
There's no frequency to it. It's 0 hertz. So because your compass is reacting doesn't mean EMF is going to be affected.
Right. I love it. Love this stuff. Well, I can't wait to see, because I follow you on Facebook. I can't wait to see.
Yeah, I post like a demon, don't I?
A good one. A good one.
No, I don't post very often. Jill posts a lot. So we're doing it. So the one thing that I wanted to say is one of our long-standing members in WSPIR that has stepped up to come forward is Rick and Melinda, which you may or may not know. They both were authors that wrote some books, attend Crypticon. They got married at Crypticon.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so they've said that they have the time and the resources to represent and take on any new cases and stuff. So as soon as I fixed my laptop, that I just it's actually my laptop for work was sitting on top of my desktop that I haven't plugged in since I moved, and that's where all my software is to update the WSPIR website. So I'm going to update the WSPIR website once I get technology around the corner.
Well, that's great, and you know, I'm so happy for you guys that you're in a good place. You love it. You're really enjoying it, enjoying the different pace of things, and thanks so much for taking time out to come on the show. I'd love to have you back sometime, because I think we can go. I'd love to talk more tech stuff, with you at some point. So I'd love to have you back on the show. And no, you don't have to answer that.
Yeah,
there's your safe word.
Thermal imaging, one of the biggest junky pieces of equipment that does nothing. For the paranormal, but it's a great tool.
We could totally talk about that. But
can I rant about how groups don't know how to use the technology that they buy? Could I do that?
Well, yes, you totally can. This is a place for my guests. They can say what they need to. It's totally fine. It's a safe place, and you didn't even have to use the safe word.
Which is croissant, for anyone who is wondering.
Yeah, that's the drinking game for the show. So, well, we're going to wrap it up here. And so next week I'm off for the show. And then I come back August 24th with Mary Beckman, followed by the following week on the 31st with Ankasha and Mentee. And then following after that, September 7th, I've got Ron Moorhead, and we'll be talking Sasquatch. And then after that, September 14th, I've got author Alan Wright, who's written a lot of books about the paranormal and his experiences. So we got some great shows coming up for you. And million thanks to Darren. Please give my best to Jill. And I leave I leave every show with a toast that the past is history and the future is a mystery, but today's a gift because it's the present. Take time each day to look around, know what you got, hug the ones you're with, be present, be in the moment, forget about yesterday, don't think about tomorrow. Take a little bit of time each day doing that. And I hope that helps somebody out there. And we will be back on August 24th. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening. Thanks to special guest Darren Thompson from WSPIR. It's been a blast. Yeah, it's been a blast. Yeah. And we'll see everybody in a couple weeks on WLTK-DB.com.
Excellent.